Previously on Creative Focus. I'm thrilled to be back at the historic Karamu House, the oldest African-American theater in the country. Here to talk about their upcoming production, Choir Boy, by Terrell Alvin McCartney. And here to tell us more about this powerful and poignant piece is the director, the multi-talented Mr. Nathan Henry.
Hello.
Nathan, welcome to Creative Focus, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it. Choir Boy is such an interesting story. It's a coming-of-age tale about a young man who is looking for himself, trying to find his path down the way of life, trying to determine what he wants to be when he grows up. You know, and I say coming of age because he's at a point in his life where he makes choice left or choice right. His life could go in a different direction depending on which way he goes.
What impact do you want Choir Boy to have on the audience?
I want people to come see this play, and I want them to feel joy. I mean, this is a place of joyful gathering, right? I want them to feel joy. As Tony always says, I want them to feel joy. I want them to feel excited about life. I want them to perhaps have a moment where they remember that one thing that brought them excitement and joy when they were a young person. I want them to consider different human beings, go through different experiences to discover who they are.
Greetings, Cleveland, and welcome to Creative Focus, the show that illuminates some of Cleveland's most talented and creative artists across the genres of dance, film, music, theater, and visual arts. I'm your host, Cornell Calhoun III, and I'm thrilled to be back at the historic Karamu House, a place of joyful gathering, here to celebrate Karamu Artists Inc., printmaking, race, and community. And here to tell us more about this wonderful, poignant art exhibit currently at the Cleveland Museum of Art is the Chief Learning Officer, Ms. Jacquelyn Sawyer, and the Curator of Prints and Drawings, Ms. Dr. Britany Salsbury. Ladies, welcome to Creative Focus. Let's chop it up. So, Jacquelyn, we had a short talk backstage, and we were talking about your educational career, how you started teaching, I think, social studies in the Baltimore School District. Give a little brief career talk for us.
Oh, yeah. So, as you said, I started my career as a middle and high school social studies teacher in Baltimore City Public Schools. After a few years in the classroom, I moved into nonprofit work, supporting schools, teachers, curriculum writing, and that led me into cultural institutions. But that was really kind of where I started. My mother is also a museum professional. So after a few years of working in Baltimore and then also working in DC, I'm really happy to be serving at the Cleveland Museum of Art for the last year.
And it will be a year in June, right? That I think June 17th, if I'm not wrong.
You're on the nose, absolutely.
Britany, talk a little bit about your career, because I know you're from Bryan, Ohio, right?
I am.
And you attended Case Western Reserve.
I did.
And you came to CMA in 2018, right?
I did, yeah. So I've been here just over 7 years. But yeah, I grew up in Northwest Ohio, just outside of Toledo, went to Case for college. And after I graduated, went to graduate school in Chicago and then in New York, stayed in New York for a little while and worked in museums there. And before I came back to the CMA, which is something I had always sort of hoped that I would be able to do, I was the curator of prints and drawings at the Milwaukee Art Museum.
And talk a little bit about what a curator does.
Yeah, no, it's a job that holds a lot of mystery for a lot of people. The main parts of my job are that I organize exhibitions for the museum, and so the sort of rotating artworks that you see in many of the galleries throughout the building. And I also work on acquiring artworks, new artworks for the collection. So that's sometimes as gifts, sometimes as purchases.
Do you also put a value on the artwork?
I can. Whenever we acquire something, if we buy something for the museum, part of my job is to make sure that the price that's being asked is fair. And so it's kind of my job to know what the market value for an object would be.
Okay. And Jacquelyn, talk a little bit about your position as the Chief Learning Officer. What does that entail?
So I oversee 4 departments within the museum. All of my departments are focused on programming and education support. So we run everything from my very first art class for our very littles, all the way up to our continuing education and adult education programs, and also do all of the resources and didactics that support the exhibitions.
What's exciting for both of you in working at this renowned institution?
Oh, I just think that it's different every day. And it's wonderful, particularly from a programming perspective, to see people come into the museum and really fall in love with art and learn more about art, and also learn more about this resource that CMA is for our community.
And what about you,
For
Britany?
me, it's we're so lucky to have the collection that we do here in Cleveland, and the fact that that to visit the museum is almost always, with the exception of a few exhibitions, it's completely free. And that's rarer and rarer these days, to be able to visit a museum and not have to pay anything. And the fact that the museum being free was part of the founding mission. It's kind of part of who we are, being part of the community and being a resource for the community.
Are there any programs at the museum that are designed specifically for youth, Jacquelyn?
Oh, there are so many. So I mentioned my very first art class, which is an art studio for preschoolers, so about 4 to 6. We have Wednesday art studios for children for middle school and high school and their caregivers. We have summer camps for children all the way up through teens. We have 2 teen out of school time programs for young people who are interested in pursuing art at a higher education level, and also for young people who are interested in being curators. We have teen internships. So just a ton of ways for young people to engage.
And how do your positions interact, or do they?
Well, they do actually. Yeah, they do quite a bit. I mean, I think one of the main ways is through programming. I mean, I think that's probably one of the most obvious ways. Anytime I organize an exhibition, I always talk to Jacquelyn's department about how best that exhibition can reach different types of community members, different groups. What programming would make it appeal to kids? What programming would make it appeal to teenagers or to adults? And we also work with Jacquelyn's department on the text that you read on the wall in any exhibition. Anytime we show artworks in the galleries, we always work with Jacquelyn's team to make sure that what we're writing, as people who can sometimes get a little bit in the weeds with the technicalities of art and our specific areas of expertise, to make sure that everything is as accessible and easily understandable as possible to anyone who comes to the museum.
Let's talk a little bit about the exhibition process. How does that come about? I mean, is it an idea that you want to collect something, let's say like a French collect? I mean, how does that happen?
Yeah, no, it usually starts just as an idea. And, so the process usually involves coming up with the idea and then working to see how realistic, how feasible it is to actually bring together the artworks that you want to show together. So it could be looking through the collection to see what we have, what we might need to borrow from somewhere else, seeing where in the world the artworks that we might want to borrow are located and whether the people who own them might be willing to lend them to us. Once we come up with an idea of the works we want to show together, there's an entire process that involves, thinking about where we would put everything in the galleries, writing the texts that you read on the wall about each of the artworks, everything down to, deciding the wall color that would look best with all of the works, and then actually opening the show and speaking about it to the public. So we work many, many years out. So
I would say the average lead time for an exhibition is about 5 years before you ever see it in the galleries.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's like incredible.
Yeah.
So this is just an idea. I mean, how do you formulate? You just decide, well, hey, I want to settle on French art. I want to settle on English art. Is it a more personal, or is it like someone will say to you, someone higher above would say, hey, we want to do this for this community or this organization?
Yeah. All of the things that you just described happen. It can be like a number of different things. I mean, as I mentioned, we have an amazing collection here, especially of, I deal with anything on paper. So that's prints, drawings, pastels, anything that exists on paper from like about 1800 onwards. So it's kind of a specific period. But I'll kind of always think about what we have and what we have an especially important collection of, what the public might be surprised to know that we have. What we could show people that would be new and interesting, just different ways that people might be able to learn from the collection we have. That's kind of, I think, a good starting point for thinking about what to do.
Okay, so Karamu Artists Inc. It's actually a publication, right?
A publication and an exhibition.
Yeah, because I went on Amazon and I said it's available. It's available already. Let's talk a little bit about that. So how many illustrations are there in this collection?
So in the exhibition there are I think just over 50 artworks. So it's a good sized exhibition. I would say about half of the works in the show are from the CMA's collection. And so, we had a close relationship with a lot of the artists in the exhibition early on while they were actually making art. And so, we acquired some of their prints early on, but we were also able to borrow prints from some local institutions. Like Karamu House itself has an amazing collection of artists who worked here. Cleveland State University has a great collection from the founders of Karamu House. Western Reserve Historical Society has some great archival materials. And then we were able to borrow from the library at Yale University, which has Langston Hughes's papers, some things related to his time at Karamu, but actually we learned in the course of researching the exhibition that Langston Hughes actually made prints at Karamu House. So we were able to include those in the exhibition in the book as well, which is really nice.
How difficult is it to get to borrow works from other museums? Is it a process? Is it competitive? Like hey, I don't want to.
It can be. I mean, for this exhibition, we were very lucky in that we had very generous, supportive community partners like Karamu, like Cleveland State, who understood the importance of these artists' work and were really supportive of the idea of shedding new light on their work, bringing their work together for the first time and seeing what we could learn about their practice through seeing everything in the galleries at once from different collections. So it was really, as far as these things go, we were very lucky this time around.
Jacquelyn, what do you like about the Karamu Artists Inc. collection?
Oh, I think the best part about it, first, I think the curatorial work that Britany did is incredible. I think the show itself is beautiful and thought-provoking. But what I like best about it is that it's so local, that it's truly like a Cleveland story. And I think that's something that is really exciting for us in programming because it helps us highlight other kind of gifts that the community has given Cleveland and really tell the story of Cleveland and art in Cleveland. And so that's always something fun to do in programming.
How important is the collaboration between Karamu and CMA?
Oh, I think it's incredibly important. I think we're both pillars of this community, particularly in the art space and the community support space. And being able to work with such an incredible organization and to tell the story of their support of Black artists in Cleveland for such an extended period of time and to become part of that story with this exhibition and also tell our own history about collecting the work of these artists has truly been a really wonderful experience for us.
How were the selections chosen? How did that process work? Did you do that yourself, or
Yeah,
was,
so
was it a team?
Yeah, I co-organized the exhibition with an art history professor from Case Western Reserve University, Erin Benet. And we worked together to see what we had in the collection, what wasn't represented by what we already owned, what we might want to borrow, what really important works were in collections nearby and nationally. And Erin and I were actually also able to teach a graduate seminar through the art history program at Case Western, which is jointly organized with the Cleveland Museum of Art. So we were able to teach a seminar at the museum where we worked with the students to look closely at what we had in the collection and kind of think critically about what an exhibition about these artists' work would really need to include. And so that was an important part of the organizational process as well.
Okay, what do you hope that the audience, the viewers, will take back from attending the exhibition?
I mean, I think for me, the thing that would make me happiest to see is just more attention to these artists' work, more scholars writing about them, more people seeing them and continuing to think about them. They had this really incredible story that I think is really, really intertwined with the history of Cleveland, the history of the museum. And, just due to, whatever circumstances over the past century, their work has just sort of hasn't become as well known as other artists from around the country who were doing really similar things. And so I just hope that, this kind of gives them a moment and some momentum for future scholarship and attention on their work.
Now, you have an event coming up, May 21st, a turning point. Talk a little bit about that. I understand it's prose, it's movement, and so forth.
Yeah, so it was organized. It's being coordinated with Tony Sayas, the director and CEO of Karamu House, with our curator of performing arts, Gabe Pollock. And they've come up with a program they've developed together to mark the collaboration between our institutions, and it'll be performance, movement, and just sort of a celebration of the relationship between our two institutions.
Because I know some of the artists that are featured are like Duke Ellington, Nina Simone, Langston Hughes, obviously, and I think Zora Neale Hurston.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's dance, it's music, it's just a collaboration of all those things.
Yeah, I think dance, music, movement, some spoken word. I mean, I think it's just kind of a combination of different types of performance to mark that sort of shared history that we have.
How do you think, what's the vision of the museum in terms of working with the community, would you say?
Well, I think from an organizational perspective, it's really paramount for us to be involved in the community. I can say from my division's perspective, we're constantly out in the community. We're working with schools, with adult living facilities, with community groups, working with other organizations like Zygote Press. We'll be doing a program with them on the 17th. It's important for us to be a good steward of our role as a community servant in Cleveland, and also reaching out to every Clevelander to make them feel welcome and to make them feel important within the museum.
How do you plan to build on the success of this exhibition? Because I've gotten rave reviews. I actually got to see it myself. Yeah, rave reviews. How do you build on that success, you think?
Well, I mean, I think we're hoping that exhibitions like this open the museum up to new audiences, and also open the story of arts in Cleveland up to new audiences. Later this year, we will be doing another show focused on Cleveland art called Rose Ironworks, around the incredible work that institution has done in the field of ironwork. And we'll just continue to bring the stories of Cleveland to our visitors. We had over 700,000 people visit us last year. And so being able to talk about the incredible arts community here in our museum really kind of gets the word out and publicizes the incredible story of Cleveland.
Do you have a vision, each of you in your positions, of maybe 5 years in advance, what you would like to see or what you would like the museum to achieve?
I mean, the museum has, a strategic plan that kind of guides everything we do. But I mean, for me personally, I think a lot of the things to continue doing a lot of the things that we are doing to just, leverage the amazing collection that we have to just reach as broad of an audience as possible, to make the museum as accessible as possible, and to bring art experiences involving art to the community that, are at a really high level, really sort of, rare opportunities to see things from around the world and, in our galleries. I think that would be the most important thing to me.
And what about you, Jacquelyn?
I mean, I think just to continue to broaden our audience, continue to create programming that is the type of programming our audience is looking for, to make sure that we're serving our community. We are pushing towards serving 100,000 students by the end of 2027. So increasing our partnership with schools, particularly CMSD schools. And really continuing to be a servant in our community to all neighborhoods.
What's the response from the kids for the programs?
Oh my gosh, it's the best part of my job, right? To see like a bunch of fourth graders really start considering not only a singular piece of art, but really start to develop their own taste and really think about what they like and what they don't like and why that is, and being in a safe space to express that. Because as a child, there aren't a whole lot of places that, you can express your opinion and be listened to and given that space. And so I think that is really the best part, to watch them start to develop as adults.
I can recall like when I was in grade school a long time ago, but we used to play, our teacher would play like Bach and just the old classic music. And then our job as students was to identify the different instruments that we heard in the music. And that stuck with me. Even now, like when I listen to music, I just think that programs like that, art and music in school, are so important in developing, our youth,
I mean, that was one of the things I thought was especially rewarding with the Karamu Artists Inc. exhibition, is that a lot of the artists in the exhibition got their start by taking the classes that Jacquelyn is describing at the CMA as young people, as children, and that kind of launched them on this entire career that we're showing in the museum today. So it's nice to see that the experience you're describing kind of come full circle.
Why do both of you love artistic things so much? Where's that come from?
Well, I think for me, it really started as a child. As I said, my mother was a museum professional. And so every day that my sister and I didn't have school, she brought us to the museum and just kind of released us, was like, don't touch anything, and be at my office at 5, right?
Right.
And so museums were home to me. And I think when I think about my work, I want to make sure that everybody has the same experience that I had as a child in the museum. It was a space of imagination, a space of creativity, and to be able to wake up every day and create those experiences for other people is a gift.
What about you, Dr. Salsbury?
I've always been really drawn to like the history side of art history. I just love learning, seeing an object and learning the backstory to it, learning, about the time when it was made, the context in which it was made. And I just love the fact that, no matter where you look in history, there's always some connection you can make. There's always something. There's some connection you can make to the present. There's some way in which, the object that you're looking at, which, seems like it has no relevance to, might seem like it has no relevance to your daily life. The person who made it, the community it was made in, the people who saw or didn't see it, you can always tie that in some way to what's happening in the world today. And that was always what really was appealing to me, is, trying to make those connections and showing people that things that might initially seem really boring are actually really fascinating and relevant to us in ways that we might not think.
Difficult question, maybe. What are the biggest challenges that you face in each of your positions, would you say?
Oh, that is difficult. That is a difficult question. I think for us, the thing that is top of mind for myself and my team is accessibility. To make sure that we're doing everything possible, that our programs are accessible to the largest amount of people, that we're considering the stories that people are bringing with them, maybe the challenges or obstacles that are in their way of taking advantage of what we have to offer. So, for example, the museum has been working on low-sighted tours this year. So to make sure that our visitors who are coming with low sight still have the ability to experience the art as a regularly sighted person would. Or making sure that our programs are accessible to people who have hearing difficulties or students who have mobility issues. Making sure that we're thinking about those things so that we are, again, really opening our doors to everyone and making sure that everyone has the ability to experience programming and the art.
What about you, Dr. Salsbury?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think one of the most difficult aspects of my job specifically is that, you to become a curator, you spend years and years and years learning this very, very specific thing. Like my expertise is in, prints made in one specific decade in one specific city. But then when you actually get a job, you're working with this enormous collection, and you're, I personally cover about 2 centuries worth of art history on things that are made on paper, and using that very specific expertise, but then doing a job that is all about like bringing as many artworks to as many people as possible. So it's kind of this process, this challenge of like getting very narrow in your focus, but then like being very expansive in the actual work that you do. And so I just always, I always feel like it's important to remember that, it's my job to kind of translate that expertise to as many people as possible, and that you can have this expertise, but also the job is really to reach out to as many people as possible and make that expertise seem accessible, and to like work with parts of the collection that maybe aren't part of my expertise, but are very important and have matter a lot to other people who might want to see them in the galleries.
Wow, this has been incredible. So, the Karamu Artists Inc. Printmaking, Race, and Community. How long is it going to be at the museum?
It still has a lot longer. It's up through August 17th.
Until August 17th,
yeah.
and it's free?
It's free. It's in the James and Hannah Bartlett prints and drawings galleries. So the first gallery is that you enter as you enter the historic 1916 building from the atrium. It's a great time to see it this summer because we'll also have an enormous exhibition by the contemporary Japanese artist Takashi Murakami that's taking up a lot of spaces. And so there's a lot to see at once, a lot of different, very different things to see.
So we need to get to the Cleveland Museum of Art and check it out, right? Thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having us.
So that's it, Cleveland. We're out. But remember, a true artist is not only inspired, but inspires others. I'm Cornell Calhoun III for TV 20 and Creative Focus. Until the next time becomes our time, be well, be safe.